Number 1.
Daniela last saw her sister in 2006. When she lost contact with her, she tried to report Andria as missing to the RCMP, but they wouldn't make a file. She would try again numerous times over the years, but to no avail. It wasn't until November 2012 that the RCMP detachment in Kelowna would officially list Andria as a missing person. According to missing persons posters, the date of her disappearance is listed as November 19, 2012, 6 years after Danielle last saw her sister. According to Robin, she saw her sister leave Kelowna for Fort St. John, British Columbia in 2008. This is where the last paper record of Andria is found, with her address listed in the 8500 block of 85th Avenue. Danielle feels the RCMP didn't initially take Andria's disappearance seriously due to her drug use and work as a prostitute. The investigation revealed that Andria may have moved to Calgary, Alberta at some point during mid-2008. When one of her uncles was spoken to, he recalled seeing her at a Tim Hortons in downtown Grande Prairie, Alberta sometime between June and September 2010. As he hadn't realized his niece was missing, he didn't attempt to make contact or confirm if the woman he'd seen was actually her. After speaking with additional witnesses and exploring other investigative avenues, the RCMP determined this sighting had actually occurred in 2008. After it was established Andria was sighted in Alberta, the investigation was transferred to the Grande Prairie detachment of the RCMP. Andria's transient lifestyle has played a big role in the investigation. As she was known to be a frequent traveler, investigators have had to consider the possibility she could be in a number of places, including Vancouver, Fort St. John, Dawson Creek, Prince George, Calgary, and Kelowna. Given such a long list of possible locations, it's been difficult for investigators to determine where to focus their investigation. According to the RCMP, the investigation is still active, with officers having followed up on numerous pieces of information over the years. They have pursued every avenue and will continue to do so until Andria is located. They have shared that they believe there is someone out there with information that could further the case and possibly bring about a resolution. Danielle feels things could have turned out differently if the Kelowna RCMP had taken her earlier missing person reports seriously. Overall, she has given the investigation into her sister's disappearance a moderate rating, but shares that she and Robin feel they're running out of options. While those around them have said the pair should just get over Andria's disappearance, they say they're afraid to grieve in case she's found alive. Robin is said to be the one who communicates with those in charge of the case. Danielle and Robin have said their feelings about Andria's disappearance are still fresh. They are unable to grieve because they don't know what's happened to their sister. One of Andria's daughters has since graduated college and is said to be working in the culinary arts. Robin now lives in Moncton, New Brunswick, where she works as an Aboriginal artist. Andria Lucille Meise was reportedly last seen in Grande Prairie, Alberta in 2008. She was 30 years old, and what she was last seen wearing is currently unknown. At the time of her disappearance, she stood anywhere from 5'83" to 5'11" and weighed between 135 and 141 pounds. She had shoulder-length dark brown hair, but is known to regularly dye her hair, and her eyes are brown. She has a scar 3 inches below her belly button that extends downward, the result of a surgery she underwent after being thrown across a room at 3 years old. She is known to sometimes use her father's last name. She has gone by the aliases Andria Woodhouse, Andy and Angie in the past. Currently, her case is classified as a missing person. If alive, she would be 41 years old. Those with information regarding the case are asked to contact Grande Prairie RCMP at 780-830-5700. Tips can also be submitted anonymous via Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477.
Number 2.
On the evening of July 5, 2004, Lorena, Dean and all 5 children were in the living room watching television. At some point, Lorena and Dean got into an argument, which they claim was about nothing serious. At around 8:30 p.m., Dean decided to leave the house to cool down. While out, he ran into Russell Sheepskin, a man who sometimes resided in the family's basement, and the pair decided to grab a few drinks together. Before heading to the St. Regis Hotel, Dean made a stop at a nearby 7-Eleven to buy some milk for his and Lorena's newborn baby, which he later dropped off at the house. Lorena spent the majority of the evening with her children. Between 10:30 p.m. and 11 p.m., she sent them to bed and decided to head to a friend's townhouse located a block over, leaving her eldest 11-year-old Summer in charge. After a while, she and her friend went out to purchase more alcohol, and Lorena stopped by the house to check on things. When she returned to her friend's residence, she called Summer and told her to ring if she needed anything. At 12 a.m. on July 6, Russell returned to the house, incredibly drunk. He made himself some food and checked on the children. He recalls seeing some of them, including Tamra, sleeping in the living room, meaning they must have come downstairs after Lorena put them to bed. A couple of hours later, Russell was smoking a cigarette on the front porch when he encountered Dean. The pair got into a physical altercation, resulting in Dean punching Russell and stomping on his head. Injured, Russell went to the hospital to get stitches. He claims he didn't lock the front door before leaving. According to Dean, after the fight he decided to walk to his aunt's house, where he planned to spend the night. However, he ended up getting lost, so he didn't end up arriving until 2 hours later, sometime between 5 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. Police reports claim no one saw him during this time. At around 3 a.m., Lorena returned to the house to find all the doors locked. As such, she entered the home through a window. She was drunk at the time and doesn't quite remember if she saw her children asleep in the living room. However, she has stated that she recalls seeing Tanis and Summer before she herself fell asleep on the couch. At some point on the morning on July 6, Tamra's older brother, Rain, felt her leave the bed they shared. While he doesn't remember the exact time, he does recall it was starting to get light out. At 9 a.m., Tamra's grandmother came by for a visit and saw Lorena nursing a hangover. This is around the time Lorena herself awoke, as she had to open the door for her mother. Shortly after this, Summer and Rain left the house to attend a day camp at a nearby community center. Tamra was first discovered missing when she didn't come down for breakfast. Lorena had told one of the children to go wake her up as they were going out for a walk, but she wasn't in her bed. After checking nearby playgrounds and contacting friends and relatives, Lorena reported her daughter missing at around 12:15 p.m. that afternoon. The search for Tamra grabbed the attention of the entire city and would become the largest and most expensive in Regina's history. At first, patrol officers checked the neighborhood to make sure she hadn't simply wandered away or gone to another house, but after they could find no trace of her, the search intensified. The Regina Police Service set up a command post in the parking lot of a church in the 1900 block of Ottawa Street, and hundreds of volunteers, police, and RCMP cadets began the search on foot, horseback and in the air. They scoured streets, yards, neighborhoods, alleys, manholes and trash cans looking for her, and even took the search to a local landfill and to areas outside the city. While clothing and a child's shoe were discovered, they didn't belong to Tamra, and overall little trace of the missing girl was uncovered. Since the initial search, there have been others throughout downtown Regina and around the family home. Lorena signed consent forms allowing investigators to search the house. She also provided them with her DNA. Besides seeing a window that had been broken during the fight between Russell and Dean, they found no signs of forced entry or a struggle. Police questioned sex offenders in the area. They also obtained surveillance footage from area bars, gas stations, convenience stores and a nearby Greyhound depot. To help develop a timeline for the night before, investigators brought in the family, including Tamra's siblings, for questioning. In particular, Dean, Russell, and Lorena were under intense scrutiny. At the time, investigators felt they weren't being completely forthcoming with information and were overall not happy with the gaps and inconsistencies in the version of events they were told. The three denied the allegations and expressed that investigators were focusing too much attention on them and not enough on finding Tamra. To help move the investigation along, they named 5 people they believed could be suspects, including a pedophile who had befriended Tamra some time before. A few days after Tamra disappeared, an Amber Alert was issued. There are different reports as to why it took so long for one to happen. Some sources say the Amber Alert system hadn't yet been implemented in Saskatchewan at the time, while a spokesperson for the Regina Police Service said the circumstances of the disappearance hadn't met the criteria for an alert. The disappearance soon made national headlines. While appreciative of all the coverage the case was getting, the family soon grew frustrated with both the media and police due to the way they were being treated. Rumors soon began to spread about what happened to the missing girl. One person said she had been seen at a dollar store with an older woman, while another, which has since been disproved with hospital records, claimed Tamra never existed and had been made up in order to scam money from social services. A third rumor, which was spread by business owners in the neighborhood, claimed detectives were looking for a middle-aged white man named Rocky or Roch. However, police never confirmed if this was true. To show support for Tamra and the family, residents would wrap ribbons around trees and leave both teddy bears and angels on the steps of the Keepness house. On July 13, 2004, a $25,000 reward was issued by the Regina Police Service for information about the case, this after searches for Tamra had been suspended. The case was quickly changed from a missing persons investigation to one that was criminal in nature. On July 19, 2004, Dean was charged with assault causing bodily harm in relation to the fight he'd had with Russell on the night of Tamra's disappearance. While he tried to appeal, he was denied and sentenced to 9 months. 2 days later, Tamra's siblings were removed from the house by social services and placed into foster care. Neither government officials or the police would say if this was related to the case, but the house was once again searched after they left. Just under a month after Tamra went missing, a vigil for the missing girl was held at the family's house. On August 11, 2004, Troy was charged with assaulting Dean with a baseball bat, during which he sustained minor injuries. Troy told investigators that he'd gone over to the house to try and get answers about his daughter's disappearance. In September 2004, unsealed search warrants revealed police had evidence to believe Tamra had been abducted, as blood had been found on the floor, on the front porch, and on bicycles sitting on the porch. That same month, investigators searched Muscopeting First Nation, approximately 60 kilometers northeast of Regina. The week-long search involved 30 people from the Regina Police Service, the RCMP, Montreal Lake Cree First Nation, and Search and Rescue Regina. While a reason wasn't given as to why the search had moved north, it's believed investigators were trying to establish a connection between Tamra and a burnt-out Volkswagen van found on the reserve. The van had been stolen just 10 blocks from the family home on the night the young girl went missing, and a jail guard named Sherry Ann Rose had told police that she and a former inmate had stolen the van, picked up Tamra, and dumped her body in a ravine on the reserve. A massive search was conducted, with special attention given to ravines and gullies. The waterways were drained with compression pumps and thoroughly searched, but nothing of interest was found. It was later deemed that remains found in the van did not belong to Tamra, and Sherry Ann Rose confessed to having made the story up in order to get her abusive boyfriend locked up. As a result, she was charged with mischief. Pasqua First Nation was also searched based on tips from the public and visions from First Nations elders. A 6-person task force was established to investigate leads in the case. It would eventually be pared down to just 2 detectives. In December 2004, Walter William Obey of Muscopeting First Nation was charged with assaulting Sherry Ann Rose. He had also been charged with stealing the van that had been found burnt out on the reserve. At one point during the investigation, Troy was charged with assaulting a female. He claims the assault occurred due to the stress he'd been enduring as a result of Tamra's disappearance. He was sentenced to house arrest for the charge. In June 2005, a new team of investigators were assigned to the investigation. That same month, a memorial march was held to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of Tamra's disappearance. This would be replaced the next year by an annual barbecue. In October 2005, searchers brought in cadaver dogs to aid in the investigation. They searched around Regina for 3 days, with a specific focus on the north end of Winnipeg Street, Wascana Lake and Wascana Creek. This would be one of the last major searches for Tamra, as the search would be scaled back in April 2006. Dean has publicly stated that he feared for his safety during the early days of the investigation because he felt the police and the community believed he played some role in Tamra's disappearance. This sentiment sometimes resulted in the family members' safety being put into jeopardy. In one instance, 3 people jumped Lorena after accusing her of selling her daughter in order to buy drugs, something she has repeatedly denied. In August 2008, 7 officers were assigned to work exclusively on the case. The reward for information was doubled to $50,000 in June 2014. The increase was approved by the Regina Board of Police Commissioners, and it has been renewed every year. The police chief hopes the continuation of the reward will allow the family to see they still care about finding Tamra. During 2014, a hand-drawn map of Muscopetang First Nation was uploaded to Reddit, with the user claiming the wells on the reserve contained Tamra's remains. According to the user, she'd found the map amongst the belongings of a deceased relative and that her grandmother had gotten it from a late aunt who'd drawn it up based on visits to a person in prison. While she didn't have any first-hand knowledge of the investigation, she recalled her family talking about wells and felt the map might be worth something to the investigation. As for why she shared the map on Reddit instead of contacting the police directly, the user claimed to have previously submitted tips via the RCMP, the Regina Police Service and Crime Stoppers, only to never receive a response. Upon learning about the map, investigators looked to see if it held any real value. This resulted in a search of the reserve, which was done by the Regina Police Service, members of Tamra's family and the Fort Qu'Appelle detachment of the RCMP. They looked through over 24 wells with a special camera, but found no evidence that Tamra had ever been there. While an attempt was made to contact a Reddit user in the hopes of learning more about the map, investigators have said they don't believe it to be an authentic piece of evidence. The experience was very upsetting for Tamra's family. It's been noted that the search prompted renewed interest in the case. The family has consulted with psychics, elders and mediums. The police have also been in contact with elders who told them they'd had visions of a child near rocks, trees and water. In May 2015, Tamra's case was one of 122 highlighted by the province of Saskatchewan during Missing Persons Week. In July 2018, a class action lawsuit was filed against the federal government. Tamra's case was one of many listed. It claimed the federal government had breached the charter rights of Indigenous families to security and freedom from discrimination, and that numerous negative experiences were had as a result of the alleged mishandling of cases. It also claimed that the RCMP shared a responsibility with the government, given it's a branch of the federal government. The claimants sought $500 million in damages for the RCMP's handling of the investigations and $100 million in punitive damages. In May 2019, the RCMP launched a week-long campaign to bring more attention to 45 missing children in Canada. Tamra's case was one of the ones highlighted. Toward the end of 2019, the Regina Police Service renewed its commitment to solving the case. It's still an active investigation and is currently in the hands of the Cold Case Unit. Investigators are still reviewing and working on case files, and they continue to regularly receive tips, approximately 16 a year. While no arrests have been made and no evidence found to explain how and why Tamra went missing, it's believed she is deceased and that foul play was involved. However, full details of the investigation haven't been released due to the ongoing nature of the case. Lorena has said she doesn't like to talk about the early parts of the investigation, given the negative focus that was on the family at the time. She also shares that the numerous rumors took a toll on everyone. She agrees with investigators that someone out there is currently withholding information and, as such, she and the family continue to pursue leads on their own time. 1. The general theory in the case is that Tamra was abducted by a stranger. Some people think she may have wandered away and been abducted by a driver who was cruising the area at the time, while others cite the home's location. It's less than a block from the Ascana Community Correctional Center, a halfway house for federal parolees, and is located near the Salvation Army's Waterston House, which is known to shelter former inmates and drug and alcohol users. Some feel that Tamra's disappearance may have been at the hands of someone staying at either location. While there are many theories surrounding who could possibly have been involved, Lorena is certain her daughter was taken between 9 a.m. and 10:20 a.m. on July 6, 2004. This is further supported by Rain's version of events, which state Tamra most likely left the room during early mid-morning. 2. Some in Regina feel Tamra may have been abducted by someone in the drug trade or potentially sold by her mother in order to pay a cocaine debt. The authorities asked Lorena if her daughter's disappearance was related to the drug trade in some way, and Lorena fiercely denied it. 3. There's a slight chance Tamra's disappearance is related to the argument Dean and Lorena had on the night she went missing. However, this is seen as unlikely, as both have said the argument was not about anything major and was simply a small spat between partners. 4. It's possible her disappearance is the result of an accident. While this line of thinking opens up to many possibilities, one idea brought up theorizes that Tamra may have gotten lost after leaving her home. Possibly scared, she then crawled into somewhere so small that she's never been found. If this is the case, then it means the young girl has most likely passed away. 5. Some have speculated that Tamra's unstable home life could have played a role in her disappearance. They feel the evidence for this stance comes from the investigators' theory that Lorena, Dean and Russell have not been completely forthcoming regarding the events of July 5 and July 6, 2004. However, as aforementioned, all three individuals claims they've been completely truthful with those investigating the case. 6. A final theory held by the family involves a drifter that used to stay at the house. Lorena informed police of the woman, whose name is currently unknown, as she used numerous aliases. However, it is known the children called her Big Auntie. She is said to have been a sketchy character who frequently lied to Lorena. She had been staying at the house before Tamra's disappearance, but left after she and Lorena had a falling out. She has not been seen since. Is it possible she abducted Tamra in revenge, or could she have had another motive for abducting the young girl, if she was indeed involved? Every year, the community holds a barbecue in Tamra's honor, just a few blocks from where she disappeared. It's held by the Regina Treaty and Status Indian Services, and the Regina Police Service sends officers to help serve food. According to the family, they hold it to show everyone they're still looking for Tamra and to also lend support to other families of missing and murdered Indigenous women. They've shared that seeing the amount of people who come out and show support has helped them hold on to the hope that one day she'll be found. Until that day happens, the barbecue will be held yearly. Unfortunately, Lorena no longer has any family pictures of Tamra, as someone threw out a large portion of her property a few years ago. The only images she has of her daughter are those featured on the missing persons flyers. Many of the investigators who initially worked on the case have since retired. However, they are still dedicated to solving the case and say it frequently comes to mind. Lorena has moved repeatedly since Tamra disappeared, having been evicted numerous times. She spends her days working odd jobs and has shared that she fell into sex work not long after her daughter went missing. Her other children have never been permanently returned to her custody, and the 3 babies she gave birth to after Tamra's disappearance have since been taken by social services. Tamra's twin sister, Tanis, is currently in university. Russell Sheepskin passed away on January 1, 2009. Those investigating the case wonder if he knew any more information that may have been useful in finding Tamra. Lorena feels hopeful that she'll one day see her daughter again. She does not think Tamra is dead, despite what investigators have said. Troy has shared that he tries not to dwell on the case, but that it's hard not knowing if Tamra is alive or dead. He says he harbors guilt over having lost custody of his children in the years leading up to her disappearance. Tamra Keepness went missing from the 1800 block of Ottawa Street in Regina, Saskatchewan on July 5, 2004. She was 5 years old, and while what she was last wearing is unknown, it's believed she could have had on a light blue striped halter top with pink accents, light blue jeans, and either rubber boots or pink and white shoes. She may have been barefoot. At the time of her disappearance, she stood at 353 and weighed between 35 and 40 pounds. She had bobbed dark brown to black hair and brown eyes. She has 2 circle-type birthmarks on her stomach, one dark and the other lighter in color, and a scar on one of her legs, just below the knee. Currently, her case is classified as a missing person. If alive, she would be 21 years old. If you have any information regarding the case, you can contact the Regina Police Service at 306-777-6500. Tips can also be submitted to Child Find at 1-800-387-7962 or anonymously via Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477.
Number 3.
The details surrounding Leona's disappearance are foggy, with only a few details known. For the majority of her family, their last contact with her was in the fall of 1988, when she was 18 years old. She had briefly visited Fort Providence before making the trek to Edmonton and had promised her family she would be back in 1 week's time. She never did return home. According to family members living in Edmonton, their last contact with Leona, then 19 years old, was in March 1989. Her disappearance didn't register with the family at first, as it was felt Leona would eventually return. In October 1989, a year since she was last in Fort Providence, and after no contact with her immediate family, her mother filed a missing persons report with the local detachment of the RCMP. Both her family and investigators have very little to go on in regards to Leona's disappearance. The RCMP says the primary difficulty investigators face is they don't have a solid timeline of the missing woman's whereabouts in 1989. They don't know where she went missing from or what she was wearing at the time. At the time, Leona was living a transient lifestyle, which investigators deemed as high risk. As such, her disappearance was deemed suspicious. While drug and alcohol use is suspected due to this, it hasn't been confirmed. Given her family's sightings of Leona in Edmonton, the RCMP believes she may have been living on the city's streets in the 1990s. However, she has not been seen since the 1989 sightings. At one point, investigators thought they'd tracked the missing woman down in Fort McPherson, Northwest Territories. Reports had come in saying someone who resembled Leona was staying at a hotel in the area. When approached, it was determined that the woman was not Leona. According to Vanessa, her uncle has said that her aunt had gone to a party with others. At some point during the evening, she'd left with a group of people. However, this version of events has not been substantiated. After Leona's disappearance, her aunt received a letter from Florida. And it was a newspaper clipping with a note that suggested she used the page to help her lose weight, as she'd been overweight when she'd last been in contact with her niece. Unsure of who had sent it, she passed it on to the authorities. Leona's health card and social insurance number have not been used since her disappearance. In 2018, the RCMP renewed their call for leads in the case by posting call to actions on their social media accounts. As of 2020, her case remains open, and the RCMP has familial DNA on file, should they need it. Officers are in regular contact with the family, who say they're satisfied with the investigation thus far. 1. The current theory in the case is that Leona met with some form of foul play. Some feel she may have been picked up by someone with nefarious intentions while hitchhiking around Yellowknife, while others feel she encountered foul play during her stay in Edmonton. Her aunt worries someone may have taken advantage of her kind nature. Due to a lack of evidence and leads in the case, all those involved in the investigation can do is speculate. Leona's mother has since passed away. According to the family, she became reserved after her daughter's disappearance. Vanessa was an advocate for Canada's inquiry into the nation's missing and murdered Indigenous women. She feels her aunt's case didn't receive enough attention, and, as a result, there are many unanswered questions. Leona Brule was last seeing Edmonton, Alberta in March 1989. She was 19 years old and is known to have used the aliases Jody Summers and Leona May Summers. What she was wearing is currently unknown. At the time of her disappearance, she stood at 4'63" with a medium build and weighed 106 pounds. She has brown to black curly hair and brown eyes. She has a burn scar on her left hand and a circular-shaped scar on her upper right cheek. According to dental records, 7 of her teeth have received treatment and 5 are absent. Her ears are pierced. Currently, the case is classified as endangered missing. If alive, she would be 49 years old. If you have any information regarding the case, you can contact the Fort Providence RCMP detachment at 867-699-1111. Tips can also be submitted anonymously via Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477.
Number 4.
On January 1, 2012, 28-year-old Brandy Wesaquate was last seen leaving a house party in the 900 block of Ray Street in Regina, Saskatchewan. Normally one to keep in contact with those close to her, Brandy's family began to worry after they hadn't heard from her in nearly 2 weeks. As such, they filed a missing persons report with the Regina Police Service on January 10, 2012. In order to alert the public to Brandy's disappearance, the Regina Police Service issued news releases on January 11, 2012 and January 17, 2012. They also asked that residents check their backyards and outbuildings for anything unusual and for any signs that someone may have tried to seek shelter from the cold weather. On January 23, 2012, Regina Police, along with 10 trained volunteers with Search and Rescue Regina, went door to door and block to block in the area surrounding the 900 block of Ray Street. They were searching for any physical evidence that might be linked to the missing woman, but were unable to locate anything of significance. However, investigators noted the search effort had been a valuable one, as it eliminated possible locations and allowed investigators to focus their search elsewhere in the city. On January 28, 2012, investigators conducted another door-to-door search, this time in the 600 block of Elphinstone Street, which is located in the north-central part of the city. This search was followed by one by Search and Rescue Regina on February 4. An aerial search of Regina's East End was conducted on February 16, 2012 with the help of the RCMP. Previous searches, as well as tips received from the public, had prompted investigators to expand their search east, as there was a belief she could have been in the area. On February 18, the RCMP, search and rescue workers, and police investigators conducted a ground search of the same area, hoping the warmer weather and melting snow would reveal previously hidden evidence. The Salvation Army was present, supplying searchers with food and water. Brandy's loved ones have created a Facebook group in order to spread information about her disappearance. In September 2014, Search and Rescue Regina was suddenly deactivated, with members receiving a letter regarding the shutdown. While details at first were scare, Justin Kapp, president of Search and Rescue Saskatchewan Association of Volunteers, would later tell an outlet that an investigation was being conducted regarding a complaint of internal irregularities. Due to the ongoing nature of the investigation, more details couldn't be released. Since her disappearance, Brandy has had no contact with her friends or family. While there have been no recent updates regarding the case, it's still considered an active investigation by the Regina Police Service. Brandy Wesaquate was last seen in the 900 block of Ray Street in Regina, Saskatchewan on January 1, 2012. She was 28 years old and was last seen wearing a white Adidas full-zip hoodie with either black or navy stripes down the sleeves, faded blue jeans and white board-style running shoes. She was also carrying a blue and white Adidas backpack. At the time of her disappearance, she was 5'10" and weighed between 180 and 190 pounds. She has brown eyes and straight shoulder-length dyed blonde hair. She has a birthmark on her left hip and the following tattoos on her left forearm: a flower heart, the word Judy, and a native mother and child. Her tongue is also pierced. According to relatives, she is transgender and identifies as female. Currently, her case is classified as a missing person. If alive, she would be 37 years old. If you have any information regarding the case, you can contact the Regina Police Service at 306-777-6500 or its Cold Case Department at 306-777-6453. Tips can also be submitted anonymously via Crime Stoppers at 306-545-8477 or toll-free at 1-800-222-8477.
Number 5.
Abigail Andrews hasn't been seen or heard from since April 7, 2010. At 6 p.m. that evening, she was last seen leaving her basement apartment on 99th Avenue in Fort St. John, British Columbia. While leaving the residence, she told her neighbor, who also happened to be her landlord's father-in-law, that she was going to visit a male friend who lived on 98th Avenue. At 7 p.m., she called her mother, Debbie Andrews, to relay the same information. Before hanging up, Debbie asked her daughter to text her or give her a call once she arrived home, which Abigail agreed to do. According to reports, she was last seen walking down 94th Avenue toward 98th Avenue. Abigail never again got in contact with her mother that night. After 2 days without any calls or texts, which is said to be out of character for the 28-year-old, her parents filed a missing persons report. The date was April 9, 2010. When the search for Abigail began, it was conducted by the Fort St. John RCMP and its General Duty Section. When they interviewed the family, it was learned that Abigail was 3 months pregnant, which was cause for alarm, as both she and her unborn child were potentially at risk if not located. According to her family, she was excited to be a first-time mother and had been stockpiling supplies, including diapers and food. 2 days before her disappearance, she had gone shopping with her parents to purchase more items in preparation for the birth. When it was first announced that Abigail was missing, both local and national media broadcast the story. However, as time went on and little evidence was uncovered, coverage of the case began to wane. A few days after Abigail was reported missing, the RCMP, aided by North Peace Search and Rescue, the BC Coroner's Service and a forensic anthropologist, searched the North Peace landfill, located just outside Fort St. John. On April 20, 2010, it was announced that the search had been completed. However, investigators wouldn't share what led to the search or if anything of value was discovered. Police checked her bank account to see if there had been any activity on her bank card after she disappeared. It was found that the card hadn't been used since around the time she went missing, and there were no unusual purchases on it to indicate anything suspicious. To help raise awareness, Abigail's friends and family set up a Facebook group where they would share updates and post pleas for information. On May 5, 2010, a vigil was held for Abigail at the Frontier Bar and Grill, where she worked as a waitress. Participants met at Centennial Park and Fort St. John before walking down 100th Street, carrying candles meant to symbolize them lighting her way home. After reaching the Frontier Bar and Grill, a missing persons prayer was said, a photo slideshow was presented, and there was a musical performance of the song, Women's Warrior. Abigail's parents were not present at the vigil, as it was too difficult for them. At the beginning of the investigation, there were many rumors circulating around Fort St. John in regards to what could have possibly happened to Abigail. One specific rumor speculated that Abigail liked to party and was part of the wrong crowd, which her cousin, Leona Andrews, disputes. There were also rumors regarding cryptic texts sent to the family shortly after her disappearance, something they aren't allowed to comment on due to the ongoing nature of the investigation. These rumors have upset the family, as they feel the public isn't taking the disappearance as seriously as they would like. In June 2010, a group of Abigail's friends and family organized a search for her. They hadn't previously been allowed to do so, as the RCMP worried any unauthorized searches could interfere with the investigation. On the advice of a psychic, they searched around her apartment, as well as an area outside Fort St. John, but were unable to uncover anything. That same month, 2 billboards were erected along the Alaska Highway in Hope, British Columbia, in the hope someone driving along the highway could have seen something related to the case. They were arranged by Abigail's aunt, Beth Cobbett, and featured 2 large photos of Abigail, her physical description and phone numbers the public could call if they had any information or tips. They stayed up for 1 year, and the $4,700 needed was raised through donations by the family and local businesses. Some sources say she was single at the time she went missing. However, locals share she was in fact dating someone. The man, who has never been publicly identified, is said to have been from out of town. In 2011, Abigail's friends ran a letter campaign in the hopes of getting her case featured on the CBC investigative show, The Fifth Estate. In 2013, the RCMP uploaded a reenactment video to their YouTube channel in the hopes of stirring up memories and bringing in new leads. At the same time, they also shared they had one suspect, who they didn't publicly name. They believe this person to have spoken about what they did to others and asked anyone with any information to come forward. Even though they have a suspect, they are still missing key information to conclude the investigation. In order to bring more awareness to Canada's missing and murdered Indigenous women, Toronto-based illustrator Evan Munday tweeted illustrations of some of the missing to then Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Abigail was one of the women featured. The project was done in tribute to them and was used as an attempt to elevate political interest in the cases. As of late, there have been no recent updates about the investigation. The case is currently being investigated by the RCMP Provincial Serious Crime Unit, and its investigators are currently treating Abigail's disappearance as a possible homicide. While very little has been shared with the public regarding the investigation, the RCMP has said foul play hasn't been ruled out and that there have been numerous searches conducted based on tips from the public. 1. The primary theory in the case is that Abigail's disappearance is the result of foul play. This is a theory held by both investigators and her family, and it's the overall consensus that the missing woman is currently deceased. However, given how little evidence has been uncovered and a lack of a body, it's difficult to confirm what happened to Abigail on the evening of April 7, 2010. 2. A second theory in the case is that Abigail left of her own accord. This is the result of public speculation and is not a theory held by those close to the investigation. According to the Andrews family, Abigail was excited about the future and had no need to walk away from her life. Many feel this unlikely due to the fact she went missing with only the clothes she was wearing, her wallet and her cell phone. As well, there's been no activity on her bank cards. If she had willingly gone missing, one would assume she would access her bank account for funds. Abigail was one of the missing persons honored during the Sisters in Spirit Vigil, which is a march to honor missing and murdered Aboriginal people. Her family was in attendance. Abigail Andrews went missing from Fort St. John, British Columbia on April 7, 2010. She was 28 years old and is believed to have been wearing black pants, a white shirt, a dark blue or black vest, a black mid-length belted trench coat, and a pair of black sequin flats. She's also said to have been carrying a purple Guess purse and her pink BlackBerry Pearl cell phone. She is of Metis descent. At the time of her disappearance, she was 6'3" and weighed approximately 200 pounds. She has shoulder-length dark brown hair and hazel eyes. When she went missing, she was approximately 3 months pregnant, although she wasn't yet showing. She has breast implants, which have serial numbers, and she has a tribal art tattoo on her lower back. According to her family, her teeth are in good condition, and she's known to use a dental palate retainer. As well, her right index finger appears crooked due to a previously healed break. Currently, the case is classified as a missing person and is being investigated as a possible homicide. If alive, she would be in her mid to late 30s. If you have any information, you can contact the RCMP Division Serious Crime Unit at 778-290-3900. Tips can also be called into the Fort St. John RCMP at either 250-787-8100 or 250-787-8140 or anonymously via Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477.
Number 6.
On June 5, 1971, Debra went to see a movie with a group of friends. They saw the film at an now-defunct theater located on 6th Street in Corona. At 8:45 p.m., Debra was caught smoking by theater staff and was asked to leave, which she did. Before exiting, she told her friends she was going to a nearby park but didn't specify which one. Debra has not been seen since leaving the theater that evening. As Debra didn't have a history of running away or using illicit drugs, investigators with the Corona Police Department were forced to work primarily on speculation. The general rumor circulating the city was that Debra had been abducted by an unknown person, but there has never been any evidence uncovered to support this or any other theories in the case. For weeks following her disappearance, Debra's father, uncle and cousin combed the city for clues and interviewed the friends she was last with. However, they came up empty. In 2010, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an age progression image of what Debra might look like at 52 years old. Investigators distributed flyers featuring this image, as well as photos of what she looked like at the time she went missing. The grave of a young girl who was murdered in the 1970s was exhumed by coroner's investigators in Las Vegas, Nevada, under the belief she might be Debra. Forensic testing proved otherwise. This is not the first time Debra has been thought to be a Jane Doe, as she was at one time believed to be Annie Doe, who was later identified as 16-year-old Anne Marie Annie Lehman of Aberdeen, Washington. In 2017, Debra's siblings had her legally declared dead. As of 2020, Debra's case remains open. This is due to California law and the California Department of Justice policy that requires police to keep cases alive by annually verifying and updating both state and federal databases. Investigators have used biological material donated by her siblings to create a DNA profile for her, which has since been uploaded into a nationwide police database. Her dental records are also available for comparison. Given the lack of leads in the case, foul play is suspected. Investigators have never been able to find evidence as to where Debra went upon leaving the movie theater. 1. The primary theory in the case is that Debra was abducted on the night she went missing. However, due to the lack of evidence, it's not known if she was taken upon leaving the movie theater, on her way to the park, or while she was at the park. Due to the lack of evidence, it's also unknown if Debra was murdered or is still alive, but the general consensus is that she's deceased, most likely at the hands of her abductor. 2. A secondary theory is that Debra voluntarily ran away, but this has been deemed unlikely by both her family and those investigating her disappearance. According to her relatives, Debra had no history of running away from home, and she had no reason to do so, as she greatly loved her family and was doing well in school. The building that once housed the movie theater is now home to a church called Amor Outreach. Debra's parents never spoke much about her disappearance, but relatives say they never got over their loss. In 1990, her mother passed away, and her father died 10 years later, in 2000. Her younger sister, Beth Seveyer-Garin, thinks about Debra often. She says her parents and older brothers became overprotective of her after the disappearance, and her mother would sometimes call her by Debra's name. In 2016, her brother, Michael Pscholka, passed away. Debra Pscholka went missing from Corona, Riverside County, California on June 5, 1971. She was 12 years old at the time, and she was last seen wearing blue Levi's jeans and a green and yellow striped blouse. At the time of her disappearance, she stood at 5'63" and weighed approximately 125 pounds. She has brown hair and brown eyes. Currently, her case is classified as endangered missing. If alive, she would be 63 years old. If you have any information regarding the case, you can contact the Corona Police Department at 951-736-2330.
Number 7.
On May 10, 2017, it's reported that Audrey Moran spent time with her boyfriend, Jonathan Reynoso, and his roommate before heading to her job at Extra Space Storage in Bermuda Dunes, California. While she was at work, Jonathan claimed to have been heading to Brawley, California with a group of friends. After leaving Extra Space Storage, Audrey stopped by her sister's residence in Coachella, California. There had been early reports that she'd gone to her mother's house, but these have since been rectified. At around 8 p.m. that night, Audrey left her sister's place, saying she was heading out to pick up Jonathan, who was on his way back from Brawley and didn't own a car. While she wouldn't inform her sister of the specific location, she did say she would be dropping him off at his residence in Palm Desert, California. At 8:45 p.m., Audrey's sister received a text which featured a photo of Audrey and Jonathan. While it is believed to be an old image, it led Audrey's sister to believe the pair were together, something that has never been confirmed. It's thought Audrey sent the photo for fun, and, as such, the authorities don't believe there's anything suspicious about it. On May 11, 2017, Audrey's family made numerous attempts to get in contact with her. However, they never received a response to their texts or phone calls. This struck them as weird, as she was normally in constant contact with them. Given they were unable to get a hold of her, the Moran family reported Audrey as missing to the Indio Police Department in the early hours of May 12, 2017. Not long after, the investigation into both her and Jonathan's disappearances began. Initially, the Indio Police Department were in charge of the investigation. During its early stages, both Audrey and Jonathan were considered voluntary missing adults, as there were no signs of foul play. That didn't stop friends and family from across the Inland Empire and California from being interviewed. When spoken to by investigators, those closest to the pair said there was nothing in their behaviors prior to their disappearances that had raised any red flags, as they had had a good relationship. It's currently unknown if the people Jonathan was reported to have gone to Brawley with have been interviewed. One of his close friends told investigators that he'd last heard from him around 9:05 p.m. on May 10, 2017, as he'd messaged a group Instagram chat. At around 9 a.m. on May 12, 2017, police located Audrey's 2010 charcoal gray GMC Terrain SUV parked along westbound I-10, west of Oak Valley Parkway in Beaumont, California. They had tracked the vehicle to its location via OnStar and were surprised to see it was away from the route Audrey would have taken to Brawley, as the Oak Valley Parkway was 45 minutes west. There were no signs of forced entry or damage, the SUV was in normal operating condition, and the gas tank was full. Upon the vehicle being located, bloodhounds were brought in. Reports vary on whether they picked up the scents of both missing persons or just Jonathan, but what has been confirmed is that they were able to follow a scent trail west of the SUV for about 20 yards before it stopped. This has led investigators to believe the pair may have gotten into another vehicle. A search of the SUV was done upon it being towed to the Indio Police Department. Neither of their cell phones were located, nor was Audrey's purse or Jonathan's wallet. As well, forensic tests uncovered nothing significant or out of the ordinary. As a result, the vehicle was later returned to the Moran family. The discovery of the vehicle on I-10 has led to many questions as to how the couple may have left the area. As the cameras along the interstate are only used to show live traffic conditions, they don't record footage, so investigators were unable to obtain any surveillance video from the area. As such, the Moran family has asked if anyone in the lower Coachella Valley had seen the SUV, which had the California license plate 6MIG265, during the week before the pair's disappearances. In order to help spread the word about the cases, the Moran and Reynoso families came together. Jonathan's mother, Mara Torres, booked a flight to the area upon finding out her son was missing, and she and other family members circulated thousands of flyers featuring the couple's photos. The flyers were distributed across Southern California, Arizona, Mexicali, and Nevada, as well as in trailer parks located off Oak Valley Parkway. Details were also shared via social media using the hashtag #FindJonathanandAudrey. As the investigation drew on, police shared their belief that any activity in regards to the pair's disappearances occurred between May 10 and May 11, 2017. They also stated that they believed the two hadn't made it to Jonathan's residence in Palm Desert. Cell phone pings showed that neither Audrey nor Jonathan had placed or received calls from outside eastern Coachella Valley on the night they went missing. As the location of both cell phones is still unknown and they haven't pinged off any other cell towers, it's believed they either ran out of battery or were turned off shortly after the pair were last heard from. A pizza box found in Jonathan's residence has led some to question if he'd actually gone to Brawley on May 10, 2017. The pizza is believed to have been delivered around 5:45 p.m. that evening, during the time he was supposed to be out of town. It would have been impossible for him to have ordered the pizza and then made his way to Brawley, given the possible time frame and the fact he didn't own a vehicle. As of 2019, investigators have been unable to confirm if he had traveled to Brawley. However, it's their belief that he'd been heading back to Palm Desert with friends, but it's currently not known who these friends are. In order to help bring in new leads, numerous law enforcement agencies from across the country were notified of the disappearances. The Indio Police Department also utilized the National Law Enforcement Teletype System and the Missing Unidentified Persons System to help spread the word. On May 25, 2017, the Moran family held a prayer service at Our Lady Soledad Catholic Church in Coachella, which is the same church Audrey had been baptized at. The hour-long service saw more than 650 people attend. A GoFundMe fundraiser was set up by the families to help raise money for a reward for information about the pair's whereabouts. A fundraiser was also held at La Quinta Brewing Company on June 23, 2017, and eventually the goal of $10,000 was met. Social media exploded with comments and speculation regarding the cases. Some of the rumors revolved around the pair's personal lives, and all were checked for relevancy, resulting in delays in the search. As such, investigators have urged the public to not spread unsubstantiated rumors and instead only discuss the facts of the investigation. There are conflicting reports on whether or not Audrey was also seeing someone else whilst dating Jonathan, as the pair's relationship was still fairly new and not exclusive. A few days after the pair went missing, a man she is believed to have at one point dated reported his car as missing before later torching it. Police confirmed that the case had led investigators to the vehicle, which had been set ablaze near Thermal, an unincorporated community in the Coachella Valley. The man was interviewed by police, and a search warrant was issued for his home, but it hasn't been said if anything of value was found. A connection between the two cases hasn't been confirmed, and Audrey's SUV is the only vehicle currently associated with her and Jonathan's disappearances. In September 2017, a fundraiser was held at Stuffed Pizza Bar and Grill to help with the production of flyers, banners and other materials used to help spread the word. There has been no suspicious activity noted on the couple's financial records. The case was since been turned over to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department Central Homicide Unit so that all information can be funneled into one place. In January 2018, it was announced that investigators had no reason to believe the pair had left of their own accord. Family members have distributed bracelets with the pair's names on them, as well as a phone number the public can call if they have any information regarding the cases. In 2019, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department shared that they felt the cases are still solvable. While they have shared very little information with the public, the investigation is still ongoing and is currently being motivated by hope. Investigators have spent numerous man-hours searching for Audrey and Jonathan and have requested numerous warrants, but no one has been publicly listed as a suspect or person of interest. It's as if the pair have gone missing without a trace, as there's never been a definitive explanation of where they went or why they can't be found, and there's no evidence to show if they're alive or dead. As such, the disappearances are still considered missing persons cases. Police have shared that the search now spans across most of Southern California. Tips have been called in from across the state, including from strangers who believe they've seen the couple. An early theory in the investigation is that the pair voluntarily disappeared in order to start a new life together, possibly in another part of the United States. This would explain why there's never been an indication of where they went and why. However, given the close relationships they had with their families and the short amount of time in which they'd been dating, many feel their disappearances are involuntary. There's also the fact there's been no activity on their social media accounts, cell phones or bank accounts. 2. A second theory revolves around the man Audrey is said to have also been involved with. Some speculate he could have been a former lover looking for revenge and, as such, he'd torched his car in order to prevent police from looking at it and uncovering any information that could tie him to Audrey and Jonathan's disappearances. Police haven't shared much about this man or if the search warrant of his residence uncovered anything of interest. As well, he's never been publicly announced as a suspect. 3. The final theory is that foul play is involved. Some feel the photo sent from Audrey's cell phone was actually sent by someone else in order to make her sister believe she and Jonathan had been together when they actually weren't. Could someone have gotten a hold of Audrey's cell phone and sent the text in order to mislead investigators and her family And did either of them actually travel to Brule on May 10, 2017? There's also the possibility that they could have fell victim to a drug deal gone wrong. However, not much has been shared as to why this is a possibility, as there's not been reports the pair were involved with illicit drugs. Numerous prayer vigils have been held in order to help keep the cases in the public eye. Jonathan's mother wrote letters to him on Facebook, hoping he'd respond to one of them. However, she's never received a response from her son. A Facebook page has been set up by the pair's loved ones in the hopes of spreading information and bringing in leads. Both families have kept in touch throughout the duration of the investigation. Audrey Moran went missing from Coachella, California on May 10, 2017. She was 26 years old and was last seen wearing a black shirt, a black sweater, a pair of black shorts and black high-heel type sandal shoes. She's also known to wear a gold necklace with the name Jolie. At the time of her disappearance, she stood between 5'03" and 5'23" and weighed approximately 120 to 130 pounds. She has long brown hair and brown eyes. Her ears are pierced, and she wore glasses. She has a scar on the upper left side of her back and one on her thigh, both of which are the result of abscesses from when she was a teenager. She has the following tattoos: a dove with faith on one hip, a dove with hope on her other hip, and "My Little Piece of Heaven" written in red ink on the left side of her chest. Jonathan Darling Reynoso went missing from Southern California on May 10, 2017. He was 28 years old, and what he was last seen wearing is currently unknown. At the time of his disappearance, he stood between 5'10" and 5'11" and weighed approximately 175 to 190 pounds. He has brown hair that was worn in a faded military cut style and brown eyes, and he had a goatee. He has scars on his right knee and above his right eyebrow, as well as a mole on the right side of his lip, close to his nose. He's also said to have an extra nipple on the left side of his chest. He has the following tattoos: an Asian symbol on the left side of his chest, a skull on his right arm, an open book with Son of God on the inside of his left arm, the 760 area code on his left arm, and ethnic flags on the inside of his right arm. Currently, the two cases are classified as missing under suspicious circumstances. If alive, Audrey would be 28 years old and Jonathan would be 30 years old. If you have any information regarding the case, you can contact the Riverside County Sheriff's Department at 760-393-3544 or the Palm Desert Sheriff's Station at 760-836-1600. Tips can also be called into the Indio Police Department at either 760-391-4051, 760-797-5839, 760-880-3828 or 760-396-6661.
Number 8.
Alexis Patterson left her house in tears on the morning of May 3, 2002. It was her snack day at High Mount Community School, and the 7-year-old had promised her friends that she would bring cupcakes. Her mother had taken her to a grocery store the night before, and she had bounced with excitement as she left with the cupcakes she had carefully picked out. That morning, though, her mother learned Alexis hadn't completed her homework like she said she had, and as a punishment she refused to allow her to take her cupcakes to school. No amount of pleading could get her mom to change her mind, and Alexis was very upset about it when her stepfather escorted her on her one-block walk to school. She was still crying as she joined her fellow students on the playground. Numerous kids would remember seeing her that Friday morning, but she never made it to class. Somewhere between the playground and the door to her school, Alexis disappeared. Alexis lived with her mother and stepfather, Anna and Laren Bourgeois, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She was a feisty and sometimes bossy little girl who adored the color pink and could strike up a conversation with anyone. She enjoyed going to school. She always got excellent grades and had perfect attendance prior to her disappearance. Alexis normally finished all her school assignments on time, but there had been some concern on the part of her parents over the quality of her work recently. Like most little kids, she didn't always pay close attention to directions, and her parents wanted to make sure to correct this behavior before it got out of control. Since she wasn't used to getting punished, her mom's refusal to allow her to bring her snack to school really upset Alexis and may have been the catalyst for her deciding to skip school that day. The school Alexis attended had a policy of only calling parents if a student was absent for 2 days in a row, so Ayanna and Laren had no idea Alexis wasn't in class that day. When she failed to come home at her normal time, they weren't overly concerned. They assumed she was still angry about the cupcakes and was simply delaying her return home. After waiting more than an hour for Alexis to walk in the door, Ayanna called the school to see if she was still there. She was shocked to learn her daughter had been marked absent that day and immediately called the Milwaukee Police Department to report Alexis missing. When officers arrived, Laren told them he had last seen Alexis at 8 a.m. when he walked her down to the crosswalk across from her school. He left as a crossing guard escorted Alexis across the street to the entrance of the schoolyard. Ayanna explained that Alexis had been upset when she left that morning, and she believed the child may have attempted to run away from home as a result. She had never skipped school nor run away before, so they had no idea where to even start looking for her. Police began their investigation on the assumption that Alexis had made a conscious decision to skip school that day. It seemed probable that Alexis wasn't actually missing or lost, but just hiding from her parents. This was supported by the fact that several different students recalled seeing Alexis on the playground both before and after school, though no one had seen her inside the building. Friends said she had still been crying when they saw her after school, but no one knew where she might have gone at that point. Police started their search in the area immediately surrounding High Mount Community School. They found nothing to indicate that Alexis had remained on school property. They checked with classmates, friends, and neighbors and were able to rule out the possibility that Alexis was hiding out in someone's home. Concern grew as hours went by without any sign of the child, and the search area was expanded. A few weeks after Alexis disappeared, someone distributed offensive flyers asking why the white community should care that a black child was missing. Some were taped to the front of America's Black Holocaust Museum, others were placed on car windshields and in shop windows on the east side of Milwaukee. Public outcry over the incident led to the arrest of 22-year-old Brian Werner, but he was eventually released without charges. The deputy district attorney explained that, as offensive as the flyers were, bringing charges would be against Werner's First Amendment rights. It wouldn't be the last time the issue of race would come up in relation to this case. On June 3, about 75 people came together to hold a candlelight vigil for the one-month anniversary of Alexis's disappearance. They gathered on the front steps of High Mount Community School and prayed for the safe return of the missing first grader. Ayanna was optimistic that her daughter was still alive and urged the community to keep looking for her. 2 days after the candlelight vigil, the issue of racism would emerge once again. On June 5, 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart was abducted from her home in Utah. Her abduction immediately made front-page news across the country, and every national newscast sent reporters to Utah and provided constant coverage of the case. This was in stark contrast to Alexis's case, which had failed to receive any national news attention, except for a brief mention on one America's Most Wanted episode. The differences between the way the cases were covered soon became the subject of a national debate on race. Ironically, the uproar created by the disparity between the two cases got far more coverage than Alexis's actual disappearance. 5 weeks after Alexis went missing, police dismantled the mobile command unit that had been set up in Washington Park. They stressed that they were still actively investigating the case, but the number of new tips coming in had decreased, and they no longer needed the help of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office to manage the workload. In August, an anonymous caller told a Milwaukee television station that Alexis's body would be found in a certain section of the Milwaukee River. A police dive team was sent into the river to investigate, but found nothing to substantiate the information. Shortly before the one-year anniversary of Alexis's disappearance, Laren was arrested and charged with disorderly conduct while armed and battery after he threatened Ayanna with a knife and told her he would kill her. She told police he had beaten her in a jealous rage after she received a page from an unknown number. He was eventually convicted, and Ayanna filed for divorce. As time went on, the case lost momentum. Detectives continued to investigate possible sightings of Alexis, some from as far away as California, but never got any closer to finding her. They admitted that the likelihood of finding her alive decreased with each passing day, but they hadn't found anything to indicate she was dead. Alexis literally disappeared without a trace. Over the years, detectives have followed up on hundreds of possible leads. When a convicted prisoner claimed that Alexis had been killed and buried outside of Baton Rouge city limits, 3 detectives flew to Louisiana to investigate. They found nothing. In 2016, a man in Ohio called detectives and insisted that his ex-wife was actually Alexis. The woman had no recollection of her childhood, looked remarkably like the age progression photo of Alexis, and even had the same lump on her pinky finger that Alexis had. The woman thought the idea was ludicrous. She didn't remember her childhood, but was certain she had lived in California, and she was 7 years older than Alexis. Still, she submitted to a DNA test anyway, and it was determined she definitely wasn't Alexis. It was a letdown for Anna, who tried not to get her hopes up, but had been convinced when she saw a picture of the woman that she really was her daughter. Alexis's case has been assigned to the Cold Case Division since 2009. But detectives are optimistic that they will one day get the information needed to discover what happened to the little girl. They are certain someone in the Milwaukee area has the answers they're seeking. Anna has never given up on the hope that Alexis is still alive and they will one day be reunited. She remains active in the search for her daughter and refuses to let people forget that Alexis is still missing. Laurent Bourgeois died in January 2021 of a drug overdose. His death made headlines in Milwaukee because he had been the last person to see Alexis, and the publicity has renewed interest in the case and generated a few new tips. Although Laurent had been closely looked at by detectives during the early days of the investigation, they eventually decided that he was telling them the truth about the morning Alexis disappeared, and he was not a suspect in her disappearance. Alexis Patterson was 7 years old when she went missing in 2002. She has black hair and brown eyes. At the time of her disappearance, she was 3 feet 4 inches tall and weighed 42 pounds. She has a lump on her left pinky finger and a scar under her right eye. She was last seen wearing a blue or purple blouse, blue jeans, blue and white high-top Nike sneakers, and a red hooded jacket with a gray stripe on each sleeve. She was carrying a pink Barbie book bag and wearing rhinestone earrings shaped like sunflowers. If you have any information about Alexis, please call the Milwaukee Police Department at 414 935 7401.